Songs of Our Lives.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Songs of Our Lives. I am Brad Rose. I am an artist, a composer, a writer, the founder of Foxy Digitalis, and somebody who thinks about music and sound far more than is healthy. Each week, I invite on a guest to talk about the songs and the music that has meant a lot to them and left its mark. Previous guests include Joe Rainey, Toshi Wada, Cadence Weapons, Matt Sage, Miriam Gendron, Leah Bertucci, Sarah Hennies, so many more. But this week, I have on the great, the cellist, the composer, there's so many things as I get into in the intro of this. I guess this is the intro. Anyway, it's Seth Parker Woods. Jeez, burying the lead there. And the occasion of this is the Wild Up Julius Eastman Volume 4, The Holy Presence, which just came out a couple months ago. So Seth is a member of the Wild Up Ensemble, and they have been doing this anthology, this like ongoing anthology of Julius Eastman's works. And the latest one is the fourth volume, The Holy Presence. It's extraordinary, which is no surprise. But of note here, the final piece on the album is The Holy Presence of Joan d'Arc. And it is a solo, like 20-minute solo cello piece. And Seth plays the whole thing. It's unbelievable. And this episode, like we had so much fun just talking about all sorts of different stuff, as you'll hear. But the first part, you just get a sort of masterclass on Julius Eastman, and, you know, some of the history of this and the importance of it and the difficulties of it. And it's one of those pieces that, when I listen to it now, it feels like there's a lot of people, I'm sure, who could, you know, that have done and could create their own versions of it. But this version, there are very few cellists, I feel like, who could do this. And Seth is one of them. And so it really was, I was just kind of sitting there. It was like, you know, the emoji with the heart eyes, like listen to him talk about it. The first part of this is absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, I can't recommend checking that out enough. And just of note too, like Seth's incredible, and his last album, which came out in 2023, Difficult Grace, is really, really good. I love the part he plays on George Lewis's The Recombinant trilogy, which came out a couple years ago. It's him. It's got Claire Chase and Dana Jessen. And he's just, you know, first name on the call sheet. Seth's amazing. So we recorded this a couple weeks ago, and it was a blast. And yeah, enjoy, just take in this first part and just kind of marvel, because it's a hell of a thing. My guest today is a cellist, a composer, a Grammy nominee, which is I think the first time we've had a Grammy nominee on here, a member of Wild Up. He's appeared on multiple Best Dressed lists and so much more. It's Seth Parker Woods.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
How's everything going?
It's good. I'm officially on vacation.
Oh, congratulations.
On vacation and working, but
yeah.
But no,
right.
It's good. It's good. It's been a very fruitful but very intense concert season. So it's like truly kind of coming down now and kind of taking stock of everything that's happened and resting to prepare for what will come in some months.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like you have been incredibly busy.
Yep.
But hey, that's the life, right?
Yeah.
So Okay, so there's a lot of things that we could talk about, and before we get into the songs, I want to start with when did you first encounter Julius Eastman's work and like what his work means to you and stuff?
Yeah, so that was almost about 15 years ago. A friend of mine via social media had sent me, I was living in Europe at the time, and had sent me a recording of The Holy Presence of Joan d'Arc. And I had no idea who this guy was, and that this piece existed either. So both of them were truly shocks for me, and why this was the first time I was actually coming across his name. And then not too long after that, his name started popping up more and more on social media, and then began this kind of true kind of search for scores renaissance, kind of led by Mary Jane Leach, who was very connected to him towards the last part of his life. And she's someone I worked with very closely in those first few years of myself kind of being back in the States, as I started to really dive in into the performativity of the work, not necessarily just as an avid listener and enthusiast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like it was maybe 8 or 9, 10 maybe, or somewhere around there that I first came aware of his work. And it's been so exciting the last few years, especially seeing more and more people engage with it and start to do performances and stuff, which leads, of course, to the Wild Up recordings.
Yes.
So this is the fourth one that y'all have done. And you play on 3. Do you play on all 4 of them or 3 of them?
Not on all 4. I have done the first, well, I guess 3. I've done 3 now. Okay. I'm trying to think because it's a weird timeline because the first 2 records were technically all recorded in the same kind of window in 2019. Just as we were all hopeful, like just chugging along, it was the summer of 2019 is actually when we did it. Wow. Just before, just after we had kind of done this huge tour of quite a bit of his music, most of which kind of comprised those first 2 records, Feminine being the very first one we did, and then the second one, which would comprise a few of the larger works, which also included Stay On It. The third one I didn't do, the third volume, and then now I've returned joining the band for the 4th.
Yeah, and this is, so The Holy Presence of Joan d'Arc is like holy crap. I mean, for you,
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a mountain. It's a very big mountain.
I can't even. I've listened to it a number of times, and I can't. It's hard for me to even get my head around. So I can't even imagine. What was the process like of just, I guess, first learning this piece and your approach to it and everything?
Yeah. Well, I guess I started back in 2017. Was actually the first time I ever performed it, and I only did one of those 10 cello parts in that first live performance, which was actually here in LA at Zipper Hall, which was put on by Monday Evening Concerts, which has been around for, I think, almost 70 years. And then later I would do it again in New York with Clarice Jensen, who we have to thank for kind of putting this score back together, because there's only 2 pages at the New York Public Library. Oh, wow. And so she was a mammoth feat to just transcribe it all back from those pages and the recording, the one recording we had that was live from the kitchen. So I then over time, over the many years later, I would have performed the first and the second cello parts, but that was it. And I'd just been kind of living in this work, coaching this work, teaching the work. So I had a pretty good familiarity with it. But as I started to actually start to record this, or just the preparations for it, and oh my God, I have 8 more parts I need to learn. and really figure out like what it is to do those things and like understand just the harmony structure, there's also musical ideas to kind of imbue it with, because I had a pretty strong grasp of like what I do with the first 2 cello parts, but the other 8, I knew them peripherally in a way, and I'm like, but I have no idea what to do here. So it was learning all of them and stressing, because it's not like, oh, I've taken out like 8 months of my life and I'm just doing these pieces. No, I have like all these concerti recitals and concerts, and I'm also a professor, so I'm teaching. So all of these things are happening, in tandem, and like panicking. And I remember calling Chris up, artistic director for all of them, like, I don't think I could do this. I think I've been up too much, but I'm going to still try. So slowly learning all the parts, right? And then it kind of began that Chris, myself, and Louis Pesakov, the producer who has produced this entire anthology to date, we sat down to really start to kind of plot out kind of like how we're going to go about like at least recording what needs to kind of be the anchor, the click track for this, to kind of give me something to build off of. So I started with the 10th cello, because that's pretty much kind of the motor that drives this entire piece. It's the most consistent, that has like this brutally driving 16th passage work. And then I just started stacking a lot of the solo voices. So the first 3 voices are kind of like the big solo, and then they have like these tendrils of other cello parts that at times come together with them, but they all really have their own subjective voices throughout. I would say about 85% of the work. And originally we were like, okay, now we're going to do cello 2, and then we're going to do cello 1, and then we'll do, whatever else. And then as we were going through that, I was like, wow, this is taking a really long time. I don't think we're going to get through it. Like, it's going to be a lot, because I think we had like maybe 4 sessions allotted. And then those 4 sessions turned into 8 sessions, because started to really realize that this thing is so dense and there's so much here. And I was probably putting a lot of stress on myself that this needs to be a certain type of recording. It will clean up a lot of things that maybe didn't go so well in that live recording from 81. And also breathe a little bit of new life into it. Someone who has sat with this work for a very long time. And as I've started to kind of couple together kind of a vision, or at least it's a singular vision, but it's a vision that's pulled from so many different performances and coachings of the works over, I think 5 or 6 years. And so we kind of abandoned the idea of recording long form. We're just going to go from top to bottom of these pieces, and like, okay, now we need to start thinking very vertically. Some of this stuff. So sometimes it's down to measure, or down to a few measures, or like 10 measures, or sometimes down to just a few beats, because of the rhythmic integrity of those passages that need to be sharp and tight, or because of the harmony. Like, there's just so many voices at times. It's not just 10 voices. Sometimes at its max, it's almost 15 lines that are like in there together, because of how he writes some of these chords. Like, one cellist may be playing 2 or 3 pitches at the same time. Another may be playing a few others. So it expands like in this huge like metaverse. And so he's expanding and contracting throughout the entire work, as you probably can hear, where things get softer and a little more lean. And then there's other moments where it's just like everything is happening all at once. So it's like, to capture all that, it couldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to play it back, because then we would do that and like, oh, this part's off. And it's like, how do we minimize some of the editing process, which is already going to be a lot. The cleanup is going to be a lot regardless. So how do we minimize that in a way that it's as clear as possible? The roadmap is as clear as possible. And I should back up and say, this is like my first time really doing this type of intense, heavy multi-tracking ever. And I was like, this probably will be the last time I ever do this way.
It's understandable.
Because it was just a lot. It's like, 2 parts, 3 parts, but like 10 very like virtuosic parts. Like, and the piece is about 20 minutes. So it's like 10 parts multi-tracked by 20 minutes each, but it's even more than that. So it's like over 400 hours of recording.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I'm still smiling though.
Yeah. That is so intense. I mean, it came out incredible. Like for, I can't say the work was worth it because I didn't do the work, but listening to it, I'm glad that you did.
Thank you. I think I'm very proud of it. I truly am very proud of it. And yeah, I think it'll be a great testament for other cellists and just music enthusiasts and those that are that truly engage with Julius's music for a long time or coming to it now for the first time. This kind of goes on record as an article here.
Was there anything during the process that like really surprised you and kind of caught you off guard about it?
I mean, there's a few things. The first thing, I think at the core of it all, I learned a lot about myself and my own humanity, and that I am not a robot. Because, you're kind of striving for this idea of perfection in some ways. But at some point in there, we were just like, producer and Chris, like, sometimes we're going to have to just let some things go. And we have to kind of go more with heart and not necessarily always with head. And striving for this idea of perfection is not necessarily, I guess we have to equate what truly is perfection in any of these kind of recorded, mediated documents. But at the end of the day, like in the true style of Julius, it's like it really has to lead with soul at the end of the day, and it has to still have that power. But there are very clear moments where if you listen to this piece long enough, you start to realize like, okay, this is very much so like head here. Like Seth really wanted this to be as solid and as tight and as slick as possible. And then there's other moments where I just like, just go for it. Just go for it and like live in that crazy sound bath. So I think it's riding that line. So that was something I think I went in with like, everything is going to lock in perfectly and it's going to be beautiful and the sound's going to be, and then other moments I was like, because once you're doing this over and over and over these takes, it starts to really grind at you, or at least for me. And I think it really kind of started to really wear me down because I was trying to just get as much to do it just as right and to do justice to the work in that way. And me kind of being a vehicle for Julius in that way. So I think I was pushing myself. So I learned a lot about myself in that process. Also, I learned a lot about the parts, especially a lot of the inner voices. Like some of these parts, I have never heard a day in my life. And after all these years, and I'm like, but it was awakening. I was like, there's some amazing, all of it is amazing, but there were just some truly touching, heartfelt moments. I was like, how did he even come up with this?
Right. Yeah.
Where did this come from? Just the language, because it's interesting with this work in particular is that this is 81. He still has about 8 or so more years left in his life. And considering everything, all the music that had come before and where this work specifically arrives, and it's one of the few fully through notated works where there aren't layers of improvisation or vamping or anything like that. And like everything is written out, Wow. So it's interesting, like where he decides, like what he throws to the wayside and what he decides like, okay, this is definitely happening in this way. And this is how I'm hearing it. And it's stacked in such a dense and thick, sequencing that like, maybe you hear, maybe you don't hear. So for me, as I was working through it, and we were like tearing all of these harmonies apart, because it's like, for me to really get this solidly, I can't I'm not going to play these full chords in all the sequences. Some of them I need to really just like track just this middle line of this one cello's part, and then track the top and then the bass of just that one cello's part as well. So it was interesting to really go through all of this and discover kind of these hidden gems that are like inside of the work. Truly enlightening and like almost like truly emotional. There are definitely some moments where like Lewis will tell you I definitely was crying. But it was just like you could see the beauty, and you can see kind of like get a slight glimpse of kind of where Eastman was in this moment as he's writing this work. And it's interesting to even know, how it was received. But to then, I think going through that process gave me a chance to be like, okay, we really have to, sculpt this record and this piece in such a way that I'm able to bring listeners in and hear facets of this piece because of how expansive it is, to give them a glimpse into facets that they've never heard and they may never really hear in live performance just because it's so fleeting and there's so much happening. So how can I, parse out this very thorny, field and start to kind of like tease out these tendrils of lines and moments that really blast things open in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I feel like every time I listen to it, I hear new things in it because like what you're talking about, there's so much there. And I think that's one of the really exciting things about this performance and listening to it a lot, because I feel like I keep going back to this album the last few weeks.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. I mean, it is. It's really, there's really everything. Again, like from my perspective, you captured those things, and I think, and it's like I've listened to a lot of performances of different Eastman works, and I mean, I'm by no means an expert or anything, but there is something here that, it gave me like another kind of perspective on him, like a new, and when you said that he did this in 81, it blows my mind that this was composed in 1981.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Like it still sounds way, you could make this in 50 years and it would still be like astounding and ahead of its time, or whatever you want to describe it. So
yeah.
It's remarkable. And you said that The Holy Presence is the first Eastman, first of his thing that you heard or were.
It was the first, and it was also the cat. I think a lot of people maybe do know that I've been reading up on Eastman over the years, but a lot don't know. This piece specifically is the first piece that starts this renaissance, the search for the scores, because as Mary Jane Leach at the time, she was teaching a course on polyphony for monophonic instruments, and she thought back to Eastman's work that she'd heard, at the kitchen in 81, this specific work. So then it was the search to find that, could not find it, realizing that, okay, there's 2 pages at the New York Public Library. And then eventually starting to figure out, okay, where are the other works? Where are the larger ensemble works? Where are the multiple piano works that we now know is kind of like the Northwestern pieces, because he had a big recital there at Northwestern as well, presenting a lot of the multiple piano works. But just all the kind of the theater pieces, all these things. So this was the catalyst to start to kind of restart that engine on his memory, on his legacy. And to this day, of course, we all of the scores have not been recovered. Many are probably really, truly just lost and gone. But we have a lot from what still exists. So that is great. But this was the beginning of it all. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, it's a good segue. I'm going to make a segue here.
Okay.
So this was the first Eastman piece you heard, but what's the first song you remember hearing?
Oh.
See, look at
that. That would have to be, for many reasons, My Girl by The Temptations.
Wow. That's awesome. I mean, what a perfect song.
It is. It's a really, really good one.
It's like walking on air or something.
Yeah. and for me, it's like that. Like, my late father was a musician, gospel and jazz musician. And so, but my parents both just loved music and they loved playing music around the house. And we had this beautiful old console with it was like maple wood, and it had both like the vinyl player and the 8-track inside, and then later they get a cassette player, and so I just remember them putting on these LPs, like these vinyls, like all the time, especially on Saturday, usually connected to us doing chores. So this became part of like the early, really one of my earliest memories of just music in that way, outside of like my father rehearsing with his band in like their base in the basement studio, and it's the song, at least the lyrics became something that actually helped me, because for many years, especially my earlier years, I was dealing with a major speech impediment, like a really, really bad. So I didn't talk a lot. And so this became through my speech therapy that I would have every day. They would come to my school and they would work with me on just being able to get through this song, just to get the text, and then eventually starting to think about rhythm and phonetic and consonant placement. So for me, it's a very special song in that way. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, gosh, not as only the music side of it, like your house. I mean, that's incredible. What an important song in your in your life. So I guess this is a question I always ask, but you kind of like, so there was a lot of music in the house and around growing up, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
And so were your parents like, was cello your first instrument?
Yeah, it was my first instrument. There was a moment where I played the saxophone for like 1 hour. And it may have been even less than that. Because I went to a school. I started cello very, very young. But there was a school that I went to, McGregor Elementary. I grew up in Houston, Texas. And they had a huge arts and sciences focus. It's like magnet program. And they had the band, they had the orchestra, recorder, piano, choir, theater, dance, all this stuff.
Yeah.
For little young kiddies, it was great, in that way. And I remember I had officially gone to the strings room and I had met Mrs. Parker and started on the cello. But then I remember like the next year, like a lot of my friends were like, we're in the band, they were in the jazz band. And so I was like, maybe I'll let me just, because my dad was, connected to jazz and gospel music, and I was seeing these instruments, and I knew my friends that were playing trumpet and saxophone. I was like, let me just go over and see, what they've got in there. Let's see if there's something I could actually do also.
Right.
And so I remember like, I'm going to try the saxophone. So I went over. Okay, mind you, also, I suffered from asthma for the first few years of my life. So going over there and, didn't tell the band director that I've got asthma. I was determined. So I went over and, they got me set up with a reed and a little small saxophone. And then, of course, that, a little bit of playing. And then eventually that led to an asthma attack and an inhaler. Maybe.
I was like, this is not for me.
This is not my calling. So we left that alone. I went back over to Mrs. Parker and continued on with the cello. So yeah, my main axe has been the cello for a long time. 35 years. Yeah.
Wow. Hey. It was meant to be. Yes. You weren't meant to be a saxophone player. No. I tried playing the saxophone once for about an hour too, and I also had asthma growing up, and I think it was a similar experience of these two things do not go together. Oh, that's incredible. Okay, well, on a different note, what is a song that makes you cry or makes you feel that way if it doesn't make you actually cry?
That would be This Bitter Earth by Dinah Washington. And it's a song that, I grew up hearing. I don't remember when I first heard it, but it's been there, and I don't know if it came from my grandmother or if it came from just my house. But it's, that generation of music was just kind of being an 80s kid. It's just like that. My parents' generation, generation before, like those were the voices that kind of wrapped their lives. So it kind of became something that was shared, either directly or indirectly. But that song, the lyrics, just like cut to the heart immediately.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I don't know how long ago, this maybe about a decade ago or less, hearing then the kind of a new version that was created. I'm forgetting his name right now. Forgetting the composer's name.
Yeah.
But a new version was then made.
Oh, wow.
Max Richter, that's what it was.
Oh, yeah.
Made a new version, which was then in a few different films and TV shows. Right. And it just gave it a new life and a new layer. But even just listening back to just really the original, it still hits to the core. And it's just, I think it's her inflection, her delivery, and all the spacing in between, where nothing is said and it's just instrumental. And then the kind of resurgence of her text, it's really, it's quite something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's like those moments, it allows those words to really sink in further. And it's, I remember, I don't know, I was thinking about this the other day, like towards the end of the song, there's these sort of faint glimmers of hope in it, I think, which makes it hit even harder.
Yeah. I'm like thinking about it and I'm like,
I know. I just get chills thinking about it. I forgot about the Max Richter thing though. I think, that's, I'm going to have to go back and listen to that one because I was just listening. Like the original is, oh gosh. I mean, her voice is
it cuts to the core. It's a different era and type of singing.
Well, on the flip side of that, what's a song that'll put you in a better mood?
Well, this was a soundtrack. I think a lot of my late teens, early college years that like an old friend of mine from high school, actually, she made me like a mixtape, but like mixtape on CD, burned CDs back then. CDRs, we all had them. And this artist, Rachael Yamagata, appeared on it. And then it would be that, I would eventually at some point, end up in Chicago, and then realize she was in Chicago. She had spent years in Chicago. So we had like this connection. And then many years later, when I was living in Europe and I was in the UK, I would end up touring with her. So that was like an amazing kind of like full circle in a way. But the song is 1963 from her very first like huge like blockbuster album, Happenstance. And so 1963 kind of occurs later in the tracking of that album, but it's such an amazing song. And there's a line that I'll be loving you in 1963. And so it's like a look to the back to the past, but also look forward. And it's just such an awesome song. And I just love Rachel's voice, and she's just gotten better and better over the years. And she's an amazing lyricist.
Yeah. I love this is like one of those songs that sounds sort of effortless, but it's clearly like it's not effortless. There's so much that goes into it, but that's kind of what, which is how it often is. You hear something, it's like, oh my gosh, that just sounds like it's this natural thing just flowing in the air, but it's like they worked really hard.
To get it to sound effortless.
Exactly. Yeah. But
it just floats.
Yes. Oh, and I love the piano in it. That always just makes me smile. Yeah.
It's great. All of it. Like the orchestrations, the band, Rachel's slightly smoky voice, but it's also still, it's a very younger Rachel. So it's also still there's a youthfulness that is to it. I mean, I think she still, actually, I'd still say she still has that, even in her singing now in her latest projects. But there's something that's so clearly, this naivete, but that still has like this deep grounding, like soulful grounding in it.
Yeah. It's just, it's like that wonderful balance of those things. And great song. Okay. Everybody's favorite question. Seth, what is objectively the greatest song of all time?
Oh no. This is where I feel like what? There is no way.
Of course,
truly, like like my youth is like looking forward at me, like what? You let us down. So, but there is, there's so, man, and I'm like, what genre are we talking about?
Well,
So I have to say, if I'm going to choose one, and this is like one that's just been part of my life for so long, and every time I hear it, every time I come back to it, it's just like, yeah. And that's Fast Car by Tracy Chapman.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
I can stop asking it now. We've got that. No, what a song. What a song. It is. Yeah, no, that is objectively like one of the best songs ever written.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. And it was great because I was at the Grammys this year again, and to see her come back, and if there's just so much love in the room. Gosh, and to have her resurrect this song once more live, it was just a very emotional thing. I think for me, I think so many other artists that looked up to her, that she was kind of very much so. She was a blueprint for so many of us. And I mean, I don't know what to say about the song. It's just so damn brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, all of it, to hear her do it just beyond acoustically. She's an amazing artist. I think in some ways it was so great to see her get her flowers in this way, even at the Grammys.
I can't believe you were in the room for that.
I was very close to that stage.
Because when the whole, cover and everything happened it was like, great, Tracy's getting paid. It's introducing more people but like, I don't know, Fast Car always felt like one of those songs. Like, why would you, it's a perfect song. Why would you?
Yeah.
But seeing the Grammy performance and I don't know, I know like nothing about the artist who covered it, but watching him, like, you could tell, like, this was like how much he deferred to her and was like, this is her moment. This isn't my moment. Like,
yeah.
And that she got that moment. And like, when watching the video, and you can tell when people realize that it's like, oh my God, there she is. Like, you could feel it even through just the video of it. I can't even imagine in the room.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Fast Car is subjectively the greatest song of all time. Yeah.
Somebody's going to fight me on it, including my youth. But there are so many others also, Seth. Just one.
That's what, that's why everybody loves answering that question. It's favorite one. Okay. Well, what's a song you used to love, but like if you've heard it recently, you think about it now and it doesn't quite do it for you the same way?
Again, also a few songs. But I would say like Solange's Jared. And I think this is like, I think if you listen to this album track by track by track, it makes total sense. But it's like one of these, I felt one of these songs has kind of gone under the radar because there's so many iconic songs on that second release. And Hatley Street was her first like big album. Right. And then after that, but this is a song that kind of, you hear these me being from Houston, her being from Houston, us both, all of, the Knowleses all being from Third Ward. So there's a special like connection here. All kind of, we're literally all growing up at the same time in Houston. And so this is a song that the more I listen to it, the more I come back to it, I'm like, this is actually a really brilliantly produced, brilliant lyricism inside of this thing. But also there's these huge leans and kind of hat tipping to Houston music culture, especially R&B and hip hop, and how they go about in just sculpting that over the course of this song. But it's one that was kind of like, you have all these other tracks from that album that really like stood out, and everybody was playing, everybody was sampling, everybody was like putting on their social media, and Jared was not one of those. Right. And that's not a slight to it. It's just that there were others that kind of became what the pop, the masses kind of like gravitated towards, but also just PR and extra. But I think with every artist, there's always like a song or two that the true diehards know it and they love it. and the masses, whoever the gatekeepers are, saying, oh, actually, this is the song that
Right.
everyone is going to be talking about. Everyone is going to write think pieces on. Everyone is going to put on a playlist. And I'm sure Jared made it onto many playlists, but it's like, for me, it's one that I heard, I think, in the moment, as in the way in which it's tracked. It kind of flew under the radar, but as I would go back and just like really sit with a lot of Solange's music, I was like, this is actually a really great song.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody knows that. So now I'm talking about it. So go listen to
they
it.
Didn't exactly. If they didn't before, they should.
Another Houston, Texas, third ward native. Go listen to it.
Okay, I don't know that you have an answer for the next question, but I'm going to ask the question and we can see where it goes. But what's a song that people don't like, or people hate it, people don't like it, but you don't care, you love it?
You know, I don't really. I mean, I don't know if I have one of these. I was like, I remember thinking about this, and I was like, I don't know.
It's hard.
I mean, if I had to think of it, this is what's coming to my mind right now, is like Mariah Carey's "Make It Through the Rain." But I know some people love this. I know there are camps. I think there's camps of like, yes, Mariah in general, and no Mariah in general.
I think that's true. Yeah.
But also, I think for this song, I mean, it's very sad boy, sad girl, sad person song. But I think this is just like some of Mariah's best singing ever.
Yes, I totally agree.
I was like, those pipes were on full. I mean, they're always on full, but this was like a
even more
specific pivotal moment in her career, early on. Not too early on, but like right at that like hot spot where she was just like, she was everywhere and doing everything. And to come out with this song, I was just like, whew, yeah.
I love Mariah, so I totally get that though, because the people I live with, my partner and my child, are not big Mariah fans, so it can cause some tension. So I totally relate. No, I think that totally works. But yeah, she got, hadn't thought about this song in a minute. Now I'm like hearing it, and man, she is just
going for it. She's on fire. She's on fire.
Yeah. And like you said, like she's always kind of on fire, but this is supernova.
Yes. I mean, it's like, you know, you have artists where it's like, there's a moment in time where like everything comes together between the writing, the orchestration, the mixing, the producing, whether that's live or in the recorded format. And they're just at this peak where they know that instrument of theirs so well. And it's like, this was the perfect song with the perfect team to elevate it in such an amazing way and cut to the core and showcase them in such a way. It's like everything about this is perfection, however you want to, you know, translate that. And I think this is like one of those songs for her.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay. What's the most romantic song? Do you consider yourself a romantic?
Oh yeah. And an empath. So welcome. Again, a kid of the 80s and 90s. On bended knee.
Yeah.
Boyz II Men.
Oh my God.
It was everywhere. It was in everybody's, I'm sure it was in everyone's wedding playlist of the time. Everybody was loving this song. It was hard to not hear this anywhere. I mean, even being like, you know, in school and like on the radio, I don't know how many times, 102.1, which is like in Houston was like the R&B station. They forever were playing Boyz II Men. And we loved it. We loved it. And we thanked them for that, because everybody was wanting to hear Boyz II Men, especially. But this song especially, I think, is like, of course, it's one of their most beloved songs ever and most iconic songs. And everybody's on such amazing display. Boyz II Men in general are such a blueprint, and just the arrangements they come up with and how they create these solos, even inside those arrangements, for their very specific voices, is such a testament, to creation.
Yeah. It's people, like you said, like talking about having their instrument at the height of their power, and they're like being able, the things that they could do with their voices and together, especially. Amazing.
Yes. And who wasn't singing this in the parking lot, you know? Doors, windows down, doors full open, blasting on bench.
Yeah. It's taking me back.
Yes. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So the next question, I don't know if so in your list, there's the song, I don't know if it answers the next two questions or which one it answers. So we're going to start with, what's a song that changed your perspective on an artist? And we'll see where we go here.
I mean, this is another Houston native, and it's Beyonce. And of course, we've been in each other's circles in that way for a long time growing up, also kids of the 80s growing up in Houston in Third Ward, and just knowing about Beyonce, knowing her as as we were younger. She's a few years older than me, just a few years, but knowing who she was before she was Beyonce. So, and really loving a lot of the work that came out of Destiny's Child, even Girls' Time way back when. And then the first few records that would come out. But then to hear her do Love on Top, and when that hit, and I was like, you know what? There isn't all this extra. Like, as an artist, as a musician, I was like, this is like perfection.
Yeah.
And it's such an old, it's a timely throwback, just the style of this music specifically, and with 500 billion key changes. And she's like, and I still got it. And she's like, and it's like, it's this thing where there's not a lot of pyrotechnics as far as like the orchestration of it.
Right.
It's rather simplistic, and it puts her vocal prowess at the forefront here. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you really hear Beyonce without all the extras. And I was like, this, and so I will always say, and I've said this for years now, that this is probably one of my favorite songs of Beyonce, because it's a gift of just the song.
Yeah.
And of just, there's not much lyricism here and in that way, but for like her instrument as an instrument, and delivering of song, delivering of tone, of line, of direction, and control of key change. Effortlessly. Right. Love on Top, all of the key changes. It's just such a groove, and it's just such a feel good song. It's like, you can't help but smile and dance to this. Yeah. It's one of those. It's the song.
I think I could answer the same. Like, it changed my perspective on her too, in the sense that it was, like you said, it was just like, this plays to all her strength and shows what she can like really do without all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
And I realized too, and this was a song I like, there's a lot of people write a lot of great hooks, but like, there are certain types of like hooks and melodies that for me are just like scratch the itch. And this song made me realize that Terius Nash, the Dream, is like the guy who writes so many of those hooks, because like, and the two of them together, obviously, I mean, this is magic. Like,
yes,
he knows how to like, here's, this is what Beyonce needs to show how freaking good she is.
Yeah.
But yeah, this song makes me happy. It's such a good song. Yeah. So, okay. So what are your favorite lyrics? Is it something from this, or probably not, but
from Beyonce,
or just in general? Do you have like favorite lyrics? Are you lyrics like a important thing, like a big thing to you, or is it more?
Well, I think yes, they are. I think for different songs, for different music. If we're just thinking kind of like within popular commercial music, obviously lyricism is so much in that realm, but also me living also in classical music, lyricism comes in a different format, right? And how that exists.
A good point.
But if I have to talk about within popular music, there are so many. There are too many. I'm sorry. Okay. But if I think of one, I would go with damn, that's hard. I would go with Erykah Badu's Orange Moon.
Oh.
I'm an orange moon, reflecting the light.
Yeah. What a beautiful line. Oh my God, what a powerful line.
Yeah. I mean, but it's hard because then there's all these songs by Donny Hathaway that I could, but God, there were so many, so many amazing lyricists. Shaka Khan, another one, Lenny Kravitz, Prince, Janet, Whitney, Luther Vandross. Oh my God, there are so many. Too many. There are too many to be very, Mahalia Jackson. There's just too many. The one that I know I forever come back to is Erykah Badu. I mean, so many songs of hers, especially in those earlier years. Lauryn Hill. But specifically Orange Moon is just one of those that really, it makes you sit and really sit with that music and how thin it's still thick, but it's thinned out in such a way within that song that it allows the words, not necessarily her singing, but the words to take front and center.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Off the top of your head too. Man, well done. What song can you or have you listened to the most?
Afro Blue, Robert Glasper, and Erykah Badu. Both Texas. Robert is from Houston and Erykah is from Dallas area. So it's Texas pride.
It's a very Texas-centric podcast.
Hey.
It's okay. I'm in Oklahoma. I can't say everybody just thinks we're Texas juniors.
I never said that.
It doesn't bother me or anything. But anyway, back to this song. This is two heavyweights coming together and just
truly. Plus the band. I mean, they're just on fire. It's such a groove. Again, lyricism is so great coming from Erykah, and Robert is just such a chameleon and helps really stitch so much together. And it's a wonderful track. And every time I hear it, my heart just skips a beat. It's so one of these songs that just hits you and it's this is the song for the time. And then sometimes I'll hear it'll come on either on a playlist or it'll be it just appears, in a mix or something. And I'm then I'll go back and listen to it again. And then I'll go back and listen to it again. So it's one of these songs I just want to keep living in that vibe. As two artists I respect, but they were able to create such, I really feel an iconic work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those songs that there's never a bad time to hear it.
No, not at all. And I think it will be one of these songs that stands the test of time because there's so many elements that feel like it came from a different time. This could have come out of the 70s and some facets of it. But then there's this 80s fusion that's also jazz fusion that's very much so laced inside of this. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm glad you picked this next question because nobody ever picks it. But what is a lyric you thought you knew that you learned it was something else and it blew your mind? I almost died.
I'm embarrassed.
I can't unhear it now.
Well, where do we start? There is Ariana Grande's Thank You Next. And I don't know what was going on, but I must have been peripherally listening and doing a billion other things at the same time. But I swore, in the hook, I thought she was saying bacon eggs, not thank you next. She said, I'm so freaking thankful for my eggs, but she was for my eggs. And I was it's kind of it's a breakfast song. Everybody's doing a song on, watermelon sugar. And
right. Hers is bacon eggs.
I was like, it's yeah, okay. I like it.
You need to sell that idea to Weird Al. Like,
so for a while I kept that to myself, and then eventually I told friends, and I was like, "Don't you hear it? You hear it? I know you hear it."
As soon as I got the list, I was just like, "Wait!" And then I listened to it. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Now it's all I can hear.
Bacon eggs, but it's bacon eggs.
I'm so thankful for my eggs. Oh man, it's the best.
All right, I'm done with that now.
All right, we've come to the last two questions, the two sort of big questions. So first, what is the song that means the most to you?
Oh wow, okay. This would be "You've Got a Friend" by Donny Hathaway, but it's from his live album he did. Mm-hmm. So this song, I mean, of course, it's been in my life for so long, but it was also through a rather heavy period in my life when my late father was going through cancer. It's a work, a song that, he used to sing a lot. And it was the very last time he sang this song for me, like in the hospital. And it was like the last time he would ever sing. Wow. And so I remember singing this with him in this moment. And it was such an emotional moment. So it's now layered in that way every time I hear it. I love this, absolutely love this song. And I know it's been covered so many times, but it's, again, the lyricism inside of this, the live band, but also just what it means. And it's moved or come closer or moved from being a song that has just been created by someone else and you kind of connect with it to it being something that truly patina's part of your life in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. And I mean, it's like a transcendent piece of music. Oh my gosh, his voice and everything about it. But what a memory. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add to that. All right. Last question. At least in this moment in time, what is your favorite song, Seth?
Again, letting down my childhood. But it's a song that I always come back to, and I will always and forever love. And I listened to it recently again, and I was like, yep. It's That's the Way Love Goes by Janet Jackson.
Yeah, so good.
I mean, everything about this and her iconic team, producers. It's just, again, it's just like at a specific moment in time where everything has come together in a very specific way. Still, it's a young Janet. I mean, she's a child actress, so it's already, some would say this is like her middle period. Right. But it's just an amazing, it grooves in such a chilled, laid back, but it's still like pushing forward. It's not so much on, like, as far as the rhythmic integrity, it's not sitting too much on the backbeat. It still has a way of moving forward, especially with the drum in there. It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is like another great example of like her team and her producer. It's like, okay, we're going to make this thing so Janet can shine. And it's a great song. It's first Janet Jackson pick we've had on the show too.
Okay. So, you're welcome.
Yes. Thank you.
It's like, it's interesting because it's like you hear this song, and of course I know it, divorced from the music video, but it's like that coming up in that time, many of the moments where we were hearing these songs, at least, was that, it would be these new MTV or BET or 106 in Park. Obviously, this came way before 106 in Park. but this is, there was a moment where these songs were coming via these music videos that were being dropping and releasing, and then they would go to the radio or something like that. And so I do really miss that moment in time, but I also just remember this music video, and there were so many up and coming also artists that were featured, just on the screen in that video. So, really, really, it's just an iconic video, iconic song, and just wonderful.
Yeah, and 30 years later, or whatever, it holds up completely.
So well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, this was an absolute delight. I don't know that I've laughed this much on an episode ever. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bacon eggs.
Bacon eggs.
And the Holy Julius Eastman Volume 4, The Holy Presence from Wild Up, is out now on CD and digital formats. Everybody needs to hear it. Thank you for spending 400 hours. My God. It just makes me, like, my brain lock up. I'm sure your brain probably locked up multiple times during that.
Yeah. It's interesting work. You know, there are these moments where it just feels like you go into this heavy zone and you're so committed to the cause. And it's like nothing else really matters in those moments. Mm-hmm. And you're just kind of in this space. And then, like, you know, I would do those sessions, and sometimes it'd be like multiple over the weekends, and we'd do multiple days or midweek. And I'd just be in this cave, you know, and the cool thing is, like, most of the record was actually recorded in Sheila E.'s old studio.
Oh, wow.
It's not Sheila E.'s anymore, but it still has this amazing energy in that space. And I think it just gave me a great blanket to kind of lay all of this down. Yeah.
Love that. Well, I hope people check it out, because it's awesome. Once again, thank you to Seth Parker Woods for recording this on the first day of his vacation. Oh my God, I felt really bad when I was like, oh my gosh, no, you should have your vacation. But I think we had a good time. So, I mean, I had a good time. I think he had a good time. So hopefully that made it, like, softened the burden a little bit. But Seth, if you're listening, I hope you had a wonderful vacation, because you do so much and you deserve every break. Check out Julius Eastman Volume 4, The Holy Presence from Wild Up. It is available on CD, digital platforms. There's a link in the show notes. It's all four of the Julius Eastman volumes are incredible, and they each have their own sort of distinct flavor. But God, the presence of Joan d'Arc is something extraordinary. Listen to Seth's picks playlist in the show notes, and you know, there's lots of good stuff to check out there. I'll put a link to Difficult Grace too. That is it. As ever, if you enjoy the show, please leave a rating, leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And, you know, fucking algorithms suck, but support the cause, help us out. If you really, really extra love it, you know, you can join the Patreon, patreon.com/FoxyDigitalist. You get the full episode, because there's an extra bit that you don't get to hear here on this public feed. Little as $3 a month. That really helps, means a lot. You get them early, you get other stuff. It's a thing. I don't know. If that's not for you, take that $3, put it towards picking up a copy of The Holy Presence. Until next time, though, keep on listening to whatever the hell you want.